In the shadowed valleys of California's gold fever, where men's souls withered under the weight of greed, one woman, dark-skinned, unbreakable, wove a fortune from whispers and wrath. But her riches weren't dug from earth, they were forged in the fires of divine reckoning, a secret so haunting it could summon ghosts from the grave. What if her vanishing wasn't escape, but judgment? Fade in on the mist-shrouded docks of San Francisco, 1850. The air hangs heavy with the salt of the Pacific, mingled with the acrid tang of rotting timber from abandoned ships, ghostly hulls dragged ashore, their masts piercing the fog like skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. Waves lap against barnacle-crusted pilings, a rhythmic whisper that masks the distant clamor of hammers and shouts from the burgeoning city beyond. Lanterns flicker in the pre-dawn gloom, casting elongated shadows that dance like tormented spirits across the wooden planks. Into this spectral scene steps a figure, tall and resolute, her silhouette etched against the pale horizon. Her boots thud softly on the weathered boards, each step a defiant echo in the hush. She carries a weathered leather satchel, its straps worn smooth by years of burden, clutched not with fear, but with the grip of one who has wrested secrets from the abyss. Her name was Eliza Thorne, though whispers would later twist it into legend, a name synonymous with enigma and ethereal power. Born into the chains of Missouri's shadow plantations around 1818, she had clawed her way to freedom not through mercy, but through cunning and an unyielding will that some swore was touched by the divine or the infernal. The gold rush didn't care for color or creed, it was a great equalizer, a biblical flood washing away the old world in torrents of ambition and sin. But men did care. Oh, how they cared! In a land where white prospectors staked claims with rifles and ropes, a black woman arriving alone was an anomaly, a provocation, a living testament to the fractures in their fragile dominion. Yet Eliza didn't arrive empty-handed. Her eyes, deep pools of obsidian that reflected the flickering lights like ancient mirrors, held stories of loss and retribution. She had seen too much, the whip's cruel kiss, the auction block's cold arithmetic, the quiet rebellions that bloomed in the night like forbidden flowers. The steamship that bore her groaned as it settled against the dock, its paddle wheels churning the water into frothy chaos, a sound like the grinding of fate's inexorable gears. Passengers disgorged in a ragged tide, bearded men with wild eyes, clutching picks and pans, their clothes stiff with sea salt and dreams. Eliza moved among them like a specter, her plain woolen dress swaying with purposeful grace, her headscarf tied tight against the wind's prying fingers. She was no fragile bloom. At 5 feet 9 inches, her frame spoke of labor's forge, broad shoulders honed by fields and forges, hands callous like the bark of ancient oaks. But it was her presence that commanded silence, a quiet authority that parted the crowd without a word, as if the air itself bent to her will. San Francisco in 1850 was a cauldron of creation and destruction, a city birthed in frenzy. Tents billowed like sails in the gusts, wooden shanties leaned drunkenly against one another, their walls paper-thin against the howls of winter storms. The streets were quagmires of mud, sucking at boots with greedy slurps, while dust devils whirled in summer's heat, carrying the scent of unwashed bodies and unfulfilled promises. Abandoned vessels dotted the harbor, their decks repurposed into saloons where fiddle music wailed like banshees, and men drowned their failures in whiskey that burned like hellfire. The population swelled with dreamers, farmers from the Midwest with sun-baked faces, merchants from the East with ledger books and lies, adventurers from across the seas whispering in tongues foreign and fierce. Violence simmered beneath the surface, knife fights over claims, lynchings for slights real or imagined, a lawlessness that echoed the Old Testament's wrathful God. For women, especially black women, this was no promised land. The ratio was staggering, 1 female soul to every 50 males, and for those of darker hue, the odds tilted toward oblivion. Black testimony held no weight in courts, claims were seized by mobs wielding torches and taunts. Women of color were pigeonholed servants, laundresses, or worse, their bodies commodified in the shadows of brothels. Yet Eliza Thorne defied this script. She carried herself with the poise of a queen exiled from some forgotten realm, her gaze level and unyielding, piercing through the veils of prejudice like a prophet's vision. In her satchel, nestled amid folded linens and a small Bible worn from fervent readings, lay her true armor, a pouch of gold coins, inheritance from a shadowy past, a husband lost to the abolitionist cause, his final gift a seat of fortune sown in secrecy. Her first night in the city was spent in a boarding house on Montgomery Street, a ramshackle affair of splintered beams and flickering oil lamps. The proprietor, a grizzled veteran named Elias Crow, eyed her suspiciously, his tobacco-stained teeth bared in a sneer. Triple the rate for your kind, he growled, his voice a rasp like gravel underfoot. Eliza didn't flinch. She counted out the coins with deliberate slowness, each clink a small act of defiance, a reminder that wealth was her shield against their scorn. She barred the door with a chair, the wood creaking in protest, and slept with the satchel as her pillow, its contents a talisman against the night's predators. Dreams came fitfully, visions of chains breaking like thunder, of rivers running red with the blood of the unjust, biblical plagues revisited upon the greedy. Dawn broke with a chorus of rooster crows and distant gunfire, the sun piercing the fog like a divine spear. Eliza rose, her movements fluid and purposeful, and set out for Sacramento. The journey upriver aboard the steamer Empire's Dawn was a 3-day odyssey through waters teeming with life and peril. The vessel's engines thrummed like a heartbeat, belching smoke that curled into the sky like incense from a pagan altar. Barges laden with supplies bobbed alongside, their decks piled high with crates that groaned under the weight. Eliza claimed a spot on the upper deck, away from the leering eyes below, where men huddled in clusters, their conversations laced with curses and covetous whispers. The riverbanks slid by in a tapestry of greens and browns, towering oaks dripping with Spanish moss, meadows alive with the buzz of insects, the occasional glimpse of native encampments, their fires sending spirals of smoke heavenward, a poignant reminder of lands stolen and spirits displaced. Sacramento emerged from the haze like a mirage, a tented metropolis at the river's embrace. Wooden facades rose hastily, painted with grandiose names, Prosperity Inn, Eldorado Emporium, Redemption Saloon. But beneath the veneer lay fragility, structures that trembled in the wind, streets churned to slurry by endless feet and wagon wheels. The air carried the mingled aromas of baking bread, horse manure, and the metallic tang of desperation. Chinese workers toiled in the margins, their queues swaying as they sifted through discarded claims, faces etched with quiet endurance. Mexican vaqueros, heirs to the land's ancient rhythms, were herded away by edicts favoring the newcomers. Native tribes, decimated by pox and lead, haunted the peripheries like ghosts of a forsaken covenant. Eliza's position here was precarious, a black woman in a free state that mocked freedom. California had joined the Union sans slavery, but equality was a phantom. Laws barred black voices from justice, mobs enforced unwritten codes with fists and flames. At 34, Eliza spoke sparingly of her origins, Missouri's fields, the auction's gavel, freedom bought with blood and guile. She rented a cramped garret above a laundry on Front Street from a landlord named Jeremiah Knox, a wiry soul from Kentucky whose eyes narrowed at her gold. $15 monthly, he demanded, his breath sour with ale. She paid up front, 6 months' worth, the coins stacking like offerings on an altar. The room was a cell, bare planks, a straw mattress, a window framing an alley where shadows lurked and rats scurried like imps. "You got prospects?" Knox probed, his curiosity a veiled threat. "Prospects are what I make," Eliza replied, her voice a low timbre that brooked no intrusion, echoing the psalm's steadfast resolve. Knox retreated, unsettled by her composure, as if she embodied some old-world oracle, her presence a judgment on his petty sins. In those initial weeks, Eliza became a phantom in the city, her walks a ritual of observation. She traversed the bustling wharves, where crates thudded like thunderclaps, sailors bellowed in salty tongues, and the river's murmur whispered secrets of upstream fortunes. At the assay office, she pored over maps, her fingers tracing veins of gold like arteries of fate, her mind weaving plans infused with moral calculus, wealth not for hoarding, but for uplifting the downtrodden, a divine mandate against the greed that corrupted men's hearts. She visited banks, inquiring about safes and wires, her questions sharp as daggers. The clerks, flustered by her poise, stammered responses, their prejudices warring with her evident means. Then, in a move that rippled through Sacramento like a tremor, she acquired property. Not a humble plot, but a sturdy 2-story edifice on Main Street, brick walls standing defiant amid the wooden sprawl. The seller, Harlan Webb, a failed outfitter from Illinois, had sunk his dreams into it, only to watch the market crumble like ancient ruins. He'd slashed the price to $2,800, despair etching lines on his face. Eliza offered $4,000. Webb's laughter died in his throat as she unveiled the satchel's bounty, gold eagles glinting under the notary's lamp, each coin a testament to her enigmatic past. "Where, how?" Webb stammered, his hands trembling as he counted. "From the earth's hidden mercies," Eliza intoned, her words laced with scriptural undertone, evoking manna from heaven or the widow's oil multiplied. He signed, fleeing town haunted by doubts, as if he'd bartered with a harbinger of doom. Rumors ignited like wildfires. A black woman, ex-slave, flush with gold? Theft, they murmured in saloons where cigar smoke hung like veils of deceit. A white patron's proxy. A harlot's hoard. A pact with darker forces. Eliza ignored the whispers, hiring masons to fortify the building, new shutters creaking open to morning light, roofs patched against the rains that pounded like God's wrath. Yet she opened no enterprise, the structure stood silent, a monolith of mystery, its empty rooms echoing with unspoken promises. Emboldened, she turned to land. Not the glittering claims where men broke their backs for flecks of yellow sin, but overlooked expanses, flood-prone valleys dismissed as cursed. In February 1851, she claimed 50 acres along the American River's bend, where waters swelled each winter like the Nile's vengeful flood, washing away hubris. The vendor, Silas Grant, a disillusioned homesteader, chuckled at her folly. That ground's a swamp half the year, drowns crops, breeds fever. Even floods recede, Eliza countered, her eyes alight with visionary fire, seeing not barren soil but fertile ground for redemption, a metaphor for souls cleansed by tribulation. He took her $180 and spread tales of her madness in every tavern, laughter masking envy's sting. She persisted. March brought 70 acres near Elk Grove, April 90 along the Mokelumne, each purchase a stitch in a grand tapestry. By midsummer, her holdings exceeded 400 acres, lands that whispered of biblical inheritance, like the promised Canaan, awaiting the faithful to transform curse into blessing. As autumn's chill descended, Eliza vanished. She departed Sacramento on a sturdy mare, provisions strapped tight, the satchel heavier with intent. Back before the storms, she told Knox, her voice a solemn vow. The trail south wound into the Sierra foothills, a labyrinth of craggy peaks and whispering pines, where winds moaned like lamenting spirits. Bears lumbered in the underbrush, their growls echoing primal fears, cougars stalked with golden eyes gleaming in moonlight. Abandoned camps dotted the landscape, tattered tents flapping like shrouds, remnants of dreams shattered by hardship. Native bands, displaced and wary, watched from ridges, their fires flickering like beacons of ancient guardianship. Knox peered from his window, a chill settling in his bones. "She's courting the devil out there," he muttered, crossing himself against unseen perils. Months stretched like eternity. Sacramento's gossip mills churned, lost to beasts, claimed by outlaws, swallowed by the earth's maw. But in December, as sleet slashed the skies like divine scourges, she returned. Her mare plodded through mud-slick streets, burdened with packs that sagged under mysterious weight. Eliza was gaunt, her skin bronzed by sun and trial, clothes ragged as a penitent's robes, yet her spirit burned brighter, infused with an otherworldly glow. She strode to the bank, the teller's lamp casting her shadow long and ominous. "Deposit," she declared, emptying the satchel. Gold poured forth, a cascade of coins clattering like judgment spells, $5,500 in total, each piece etched with the patina of hidden labors. The clerk, young and wide-eyed, gasped. "From whence this bounty?" "From the grounds confessions," Eliza replied, her tone evoking buried sins unearthed, a spiritual excavation where greed met grace. Word erupted, fortunes from nowhere, secrets veiled in mist. Had she unearthed a lost vein, bartered with phantoms, or invoked celestial favor? Envy festered, whispers turning to plots. Men shadowed her steps, eyes hungry for her enigma. But Eliza moved undaunted, her wealth a weapon in a war against injustice, her life a parable of resilience amid ruin. Yet beneath the triumph lurked shadows. In quiet moments, alone in her garret, she opened her Bible to Job, tracing verses of suffering and restoration. Was her gold a blessing or a curse? The land she bought, once scorned, began to yield not ore, but crops resilient to flood, as if her touch invoked fertility from famine. Rumors swelled, she communed with spirits of the dispossessed, channeling their vengeance into prosperity. White miners, their claims barren, eyed her with malice, plotting in dimly lit bars where whiskey fueled fantasies of theft. One night, as thunder rumbled like heavenly artillery, a delegation confronted her. Led by a burly prospector named Rafe Colton, his face scarred by blasts and brawls, they pounded on her door. "Share your secret, woman, or we'll take it," Eliza opened the portal, lamplight haloing her like a saint. My secret is faith in justice deferred. Covet it, and reap what you sow. They retreated, unnerved, whispers of witchcraft trailing them. But the seed of conflict was planted, a biblical thorn in the flesh. As 1852 dawned, Eliza expanded her empire. She transformed the brick building into a haven, not a mere boarding house, but a sanctuary for the marginalized. Black freedmen, Chinese laborers, displaced natives found refuge there, rooms scented with sage and stew, walls echoing with stories of survival. She invested shrewdly, shares in Wells Fargo, stakes in laundries that cleaned not just cloth but consciences, eateries where eavesdropped conversations yielded market wisdom. Her fortune ballooned, a testament to providence amid pandemonium. Spiritual threads wove through her days. She attended clandestine gatherings, preaching abolition is holy war, her voice rising like a prophetess. The gold you seek is fool's lure, true riches lie in freeing the bound. Themes of guilt haunted her, memories of Missouri's atrocities, sins of omission in a land of excess. Redemption beckoned in her acts, funding escapes via underground routes, her satchel a vessel for forged papers and coins. But mystery deepened. Whispers of her foothills sojourn persisted. Had she discovered not gold, but artifacts of ancient curses? Spanish relics. Native talismans, infused with retributive power? Men who envied her grew bold, one attempting to pilfer her satchel under cover of night. He was found dawnstruck, babbling of visions, flames engulfing greedy souls, rivers swallowing the unjust. By 1853, her wealth rivaled the territory's elite, millions in today's measure. Yet prosperity bred peril. Lawsuits loomed, fabricated by jealous rivals claiming her holdings illegitimate. In court, where black words weighed nothing, she stood unbowed, her presence a silent indictment of hypocrisy. The climax brewed in 1855. Amid bountiful harvests from her worthless lands irrigated ingeniously, yielding wheat and fruit as if blessed, Eliza vanished again. This time, forever? Her satchel, found empty by a cottonwood grove, ground clawed as by frenzied seekers. Was it theft, flight, or ascension? Legends say she ascended, her spirit a guardian over California's sins, exacting divine tolls. Her legacy chills, a woman who turned oppression to opulence, her story a mirror to our souls. In the gold's gleam, see not wealth, but warning, greed's retribution awaits. Fade to the golden haze of a Sacramento dawn, 1852, where the sun crests the Sierra foothills like a judgmental eye, casting long shadows over the mud-churned streets. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and smoldering campfires, the distant clang of hammers echoing like the tolling of funeral bells. Riverboats chug along the Sacramento, their whistles piercing the morning hush, a mournful wail that seems to lament the souls lost to greed's insatiable hunger. In this crucible of ambition, where men barter their morals for nuggets of yellow deceit, Eliza Thorne moves like a shadow unbound, her leather satchel now a symbol of enigma, bulging with weights unseen, as if carrying the burdens of biblical sins. Whispers had already begun to coil through the saloons and shanties like serpents in Eden. She'd clawed her gold from a grave, bartered with phantoms, or perhaps invoked the wrath of forgotten gods. But Eliza paid no heed to the venomous tongues. The day after her return, she strode into the land office, the wooden floorboards creaking under her boots like the groans of the damned. Dust motes danced in the slanting light from grimy windows, illuminating maps yellowed with age, their ink veins tracing the territory's contested arteries. She purchased 2 more parcels, 80 acres of flood-scarred lowlands near the Consumes River, where winter waters raged like the floods of Noah, purging the land in righteous deluge. The clerk, a bespectacled man with ink-stained fingers, eyed her curiously, his quill hovering like a hesitant confessor. More of that drowned earth, Miss Thorne? Folks say it's cursed, swallows seeds and spits out sorrow. Eliza's gaze, steady as a prophet's, met his. Curses are for those who fear renewal. Floods wash away the old sins, leaving fertile ground for the faithful. Her voice carried the weight of scripture, evoking baptismal waters that cleanse the soul's stains. She paid in gold coins that clinked with finality, each one a token of her unyielding resolve, and left without another word, the door's bell tinkling like a distant chapel chime. The following dawn, under a sky bruised with impending rain, Eliza hired 3 laborers, white men, for in this lawless land, only their word held sway in courts of mortal judgment.
Black testimonies were dismissed like whispers in a gale, a stark reminder of the nation's fractured covenant.
The men Elias Ford, a burly Irishman with fists like hammers, Caleb Dunn, lean and wiry from years of fruitless panning, and Harlan Voss, scarred by tavern brawls, gathered at her J Street building, its brick facade standing resolute amid the wooden sprawl, like a fortress against the encroaching chaos. She paid them $3 daily, a king's ransom in these desperate times, and led them to her Freeport parcel, where the earth lay flat and unassuming, scarred by seasonal inundations. "Build me a barn sturdy as Solomon's temple," she instructed, her breath visible in the chill air, "and carve irrigation channels deep and true, to guide the waters like veins of providence."
Ford scratched his stubbled chin, the scent of tobacco clinging to him like regret. "What crop defies these floods, ma'am?"
"This ground's a watery grave come winter, drowns ambition before it sprouts." Eliza knelt, her fingers sifting the soil, rich and loamy, infused with the silt of renewal.
"It depends on what the earth confesses. But remember, even in deluge, there's divine design washing away greed's taint, enriching the humble."
Her words hung heavy, laced with spiritual undertone, as if she saw not barren fields but a parable of redemption, where floods mirrored the soul's purification through trial. The men labored under her watchful eye, axes biting into timber with rhythmic thuds, saws whining like lamentations. Sweat beaded on their brows, mixing with the damp fog that rolled off the river, its
murmur a constant undertow of secrets.
They erected the barn beams groaning as they locked into place, nails driven with hammer strikes that echoed across the valley like thunderclaps of creation. Ditches snaked through the earth, clods of mud flying in arcs, the scent of upturned soil earthy and primal, evoking the garden's first tilling. At night, around a crackling campfire where flames danced like infernal spirits, they speculated in hushed tones, beans simmering in a cast-iron pot, the sizzle punctuating their doubts. "She's touched in the head," Dunn muttered, his spoon scraping the tin plate with a metallic rasp. "Pouring gold into this muck, it's like tempting fate, building on sand as the good book warns." Voss chuckled, but his eyes darted nervously.
"Or she's wiser than us fools."
"That look she gives, calculating, like she's weighing souls on Judgment Day. Mark my words, there's a plan here, woven with threads of mystery." Ford stared into the fire, embers reflecting in his eyes like hellish glow.
"Plan or pact?"
"Whispers say her gold's not clean dug from unhallowed ground, perhaps. But I'll build for her coin, let the Lord sort the rest." Eliza revealed nothing, her presence a silent overseer, her satchel ever at her side like a relic of faith. Once the work concluded, the barn's roof shingles glistening under a rare sunbeam, ditches channeling phantom waters, she vanished anew. This time, for a mere month, riding into the foothills where pines whispered ancient psalms, and streams gurgled like confessions.
The land held its breath, winds howling through canyons as if mourning lost innocence.
She returned in January's grip, frost rhyming the ground like a shroud of penance, her figure emerging from the mist like a resurrected apparition. At Wells Fargo, the lamplight flickered on polished counters, casting elongated shadows that twisted like tormented consciences. Young clerk Elias Hawthorne, Peter Whitlock and another telling, but names blur in legend's retelling, recognized her instantly, his quill trembling. She poured forth $4,200 in gold, coins tumbling with a resonant chime, each one gleaming as if forged in celestial fires.
Hawthorne swallowed, his voice a whisper. "Another blessing from the earth, ma'am?"
"From hidden mercies," Eliza replied, her tone evoking manna's fall, a divine provision amid famine. He processed the deposit without further query, but later confided in manager Theodore Langford, a stern man with spectacles perched like judgmental perches.
"Over $12,000 now, sir."
"No claim, no mine, it's unnatural."
Langford drummed fingers on his desk, the wood echoing like a gavel. "Unnatural or unlawful? We'll see."
He sought Sheriff Amos Hale, a weathered lawman whose badge gleamed dully in his cluttered office, papers strewn like scattered commandments. Hale, veteran of frontier skirmishes, listened with a sigh, the creak of his chair underscoring his weariness.
"A black woman prospering vexes you, Langford?" "Unless she's broken laws, my hands are tied. California's free, but envy chains us all." Frustrated, Langford departed, but the seed of suspicion sprouted. By February, Eliza's every move drew eyes, shadows lengthening behind her on streets slick with rain, murmurs rising like incense of accusation.
One man, Ezekiel Barrow, Samuel Pritchard's echo, but deepened in despair, embodied the brewing storm. At 45, Barrow was a husk of broken dreams, Pennsylvania farms lost to debt's cruel harvest, Philadelphia ventures crumbled like Jericho's walls, family letters pleading from afar, ink smudged with tears. He'd sailed round the Horn, storms battering the ship like divine wrath, arriving to pan rivers that yielded only mockery, $1.50 in 2 years, his cough rattling like chains of bondage. Hearing of Eliza, a woman of color amassing what eluded him, ignited infernal rage. It was as if Providence mocked him, bestowing blessings on the unworthy while he languished. Why her, he railed in saloons, ale foaming like his fury. While I toil in vain, she reaps without sweat, it's blasphemy. Obsession gripped him like thorns in flesh. He interrogated her laborers, their campfire tales fueling his fire. Pored over land records, maps unfurling like scrolls of fate. Shadowed her deposits, the bank's brass handles cold under his lurking gaze. Then, he trailed her stealthy as Judas, horses' hooves muffled on trails, keeping to thickets where branches scratched like accusing fingers. For weeks, he endured, nights under stars that judged him, jerky tasting of ash, body aching like a penitent's flagellation. He witnessed her inspections, barns rising as arcs against flood, ditches channeling redemption's flow. But no digging, no revelation. Until Valentine's Eve, 1852, under a moon pale as betrayal. Eliza rode to her consummy's plot, shovel glinting ominously. From a ridge cloaked in chaparral, its thorns pricking like sins, Barrow watched. She dismounted amid cottonwoods, their trunks twisted like souls in torment, leaves rustling like whispers of the departed. She paced, then knelt, a ritualistic pose, as if communing with earth's buried judgments. The shovel bit deep, earth yielding with soft sighs, pile growing like excavated guilt. After an hour, she extracted something obscured, but the satchel sagged heavily, as if laden with forbidden fruit. She refilled the hole, smoothing it seamlessly, and departed, hoofbeats fading like receding grace. Barrow surged forward, heart pounding like apocalyptic drums. He clawed the ground, fingers raw, nails splintering, dirt caking under them like grave soil. Hours blurred into frenzy, stick, rock, desperation's tools. By moonlight, he ravaged the grove, roots exposed like unearthed secrets, but yielded nothing. Exhaustion. Laud him, visions dancing gold mirages, Eliza's face morphing into avenging angel. Dawn found him broken, stumbling to Hale's office, mud-encrusted, eyes wild as a prophet's trance. I saw her unearthed treasure from hell's depths. Hale's gaze hardened like forged steel. Trespass and delusion, Barrow? Leave her be, or face irons. California's gold fever claims minds before bodies. But Barrow couldn't repent. Obsession festered, spilling in taverns where lanterns swung like censers, amplifying tales, secret loads, demonic pacts, maps from spectral Spaniards. Rumors blazed, Sacramento ablaze with paranoia. Eliza sensed the shift, stares piercing like thorns of Christ, followers bold as Pharisees. She enlisted Guardian Josiah Kane, a war-scarred veteran, rifle slung like a cross. Trouble brews, she confided, voice steady as psalms. The envious swarm, Kane growled, scar twitching. I'll ward them. They patrolled her lands, Kane's eyes vigilant, rifles click a deterrent. Followers lurked, but Eliza ceased excavations, turning to infrastructure, more barns as sanctuaries, ditches as conduits of grace. Deposits halted for months, whispers claiming her source depleted. But in June, revelation dawned, she leased to farmers. First, Otto Kraus, Bavarian exile, eyes lighting at the silt-rich soil. Floods bless, not curse renewal's gift. He planted, harvests bountiful, wheat swaying like golden choirs. Others followed, selective souls, understanding deluge as divine fertilizer. By year's end, 12 tenants, rents flowing like manna. Yet the enigma lingered, initial fortunes unexplained, over $25,000 spent. Was it earthly vein or heavenly intervention? Barrow's obsession peaked, visions haunting gold as temptation, Eliza as arbiter of justice. In quiet chapels, he knelt, pleading forgiveness, but greed's grip tightened. Spiritual chill pervaded, her success a mirror to men's sins, floods symbolizing retribution, gold a test of soul. Rumors evolved, perhaps she channeled ancestors' vengeance, turning oppression to opulence.
Tension simmered, a powder keg of envy, awaiting ignition.
As 1853 loomed, Eliza's empire grew, a beacon amid darkness, her legacy whispering of redemption's price. Fade in on the autumn haze of 1853, Sacramento's streets alive with the crackle of dry leaves underfoot and the low rumble of wagons hauling dreams turned to dust. The air carries the faint metallic tang of distant forges, mingled with the acrid smoke of campfires where men huddle, their faces gaunt from hunger and hope deferred. Lanterns swing from saloon porches, casting flickering pools of light that dance like restless spirits across muddied planks. Inside the Golden Dream Saloon, the din of clinking glasses and raucous laughter swells, then hushes as surveyor Elias Whitaker, Charles Whitman's echo, but etched deeper with the scars of frontier solitude, leans forward, his voice cutting through the haze like a preacher's warning. He speaks of Spanish missionaries, cloaked in the robes of faith, hauling mule trains laden with sacred gold from southern missions northward in the 1700s, candlesticks gleaming like captured sunlight, crosses heavy with divine weight, coins stamped with royal decrees. Ambushed by Miwok warriors in the shadowed foothills, the survivors buried their treasure beneath ancient oaks, carving cryptic symbols into bark as markers for return. But fate intervened, wounds festered, fevers claimed them, and the secret faded into legend, a lost covenant buried under centuries of silence. And now, Whitaker intones, eyes gleaming with feverish certainty, a black woman unearths it. No claim filed, no pan in the river, yet gold flows from her satchel like manna from heaven. How else explain it? She's not mining sin's yellow curse, she's reclaiming what the faithful lost. The tale spreads like wildfire through Sacramento's veins, down muddy alleys, into mining camps where lanterns bob in darkness, across the bay to San Francisco's fog-shrouded docks. Romantic, mysterious, palatable, better a hidden Spanish hoard than the unbearable truth that Eliza Thorne, once enslaved, had outmaneuvered them all through quiet cunning and unshakable faith. The alternative shatters their fragile pride, a mirror reflecting their own spiritual poverty amid material want. Eliza ignores the venom. She leases more land, her cursed parcels blooming under careful tending, ditches deepened, barns fortified like arks against coming wrath. Farmers arrive, drawn by whispers of her vision, Otto Kraus, Heinrich Bauer, others who see not floodplains but fertile promise. Then winter 1853-54 unleashes biblical fury. Rains pound relentlessly, rivers swell like wrathful serpents. The American River breaches first in late December, waters roaring over banks with thunderous force, carrying uprooted trees and debris like apocalyptic flotsam. Sacramento transforms into a vast, churning lake, streets vanish under 6 feet of brown torrent, wooden shanties tilt drunkenly, foundations undermined by currents that suck at pilings like hungry graves. Tents sweep away in the night, their occupants waking to icy submersion, screams lost in the roar. Wooden buildings lean, roofs collapse under the weight, lanterns extinguished in the deluge. People drown in sleep, bodies carried downstream like offerings to the river god. The tent city dissolves entirely, remnants floating like shattered promises. Eliza's lowlands submerge for months, a shallow sea mirroring the sky's gray judgment. Yet when March's sun pierces the clouds, waters recede slowly, leaving behind a miracle. Thick, dark silt blankets the earth, nutrient-rich sediment scoured from mountain slopes by the very floods that ruined others. The soil, once dismissed as worthless, now gleams fertile, black as fertile promise, teeming with life reborn from destruction. Farmers plant in awe. Cross's wheat rises tall and golden, heads heavy as if blessed. Bauer's vegetables burst forth in abundance, roots drinking deep from enriched ground. Yields double, triple enough to buy land outright, build homes, send money east. Word spreads, Eliza had foreseen. She'd bought not drowned earth, but renewal's vessel. Floods weren't curse but covenant, rivers carrying mountain bounty, depositing it like divine tithe. She'd paid pennies for what became California's richest soil, leasing at premiums that swelled her coffers beyond any strike. By summer 1854, her income surges over $12,000 annually from shares of harvests, percentages of bounty. No pickaxe, no sluice, just foresight, strategy, and perhaps prophetic insight. Men who'd mocked her now seethe, feeling robbed of what rightfully theirs. Envy festers into rage, she'd stolen opportunity by seeing what they blinded themselves to. In July, the Sacramento Prosperity League forms, not committee, but cabal, in the dim backroom of the Empire Hotel, cigar smoke curling like incense of conspiracy.
Led by attorney Victor Harlan, Richard Brennan's kin in bitterness, a Boston transplant whose legal dreams drowned in gun law reality. She threatens the order, he declares, voice low and venomous. A Negro woman amassing empire while we starve? It's unnatural, ungodly. She deceives, manipulates, perhaps with darker arts. We must reclaim what's ours. 15 men nod, failed prospectors, bankrupt merchants, laborers nursing grudges. They need a scapegoat for their sins of sloth and pride. Eliza fits perfectly. Their campaign begins August, complaints flood the land office, fraud, bribery, illegitimacy. Letters to the governor demand probes. Articles in the Sacramento Union decry her mysterious wealth. But deeds hold, payments in gold, witnesses impeccable, no irregularity. Frustrated, they encircle her holdings, buying adjacent plots to box her in. Eliza halts expansion. Fortifying what she has, more ditches like veins of grace, barns as sanctuaries. Income flows unabated. Violence erupts September, one barn ignites under cover of night, flames roaring skyward like hell's fury, timbers crackling, smoke billowing black against stars. Embers drift like fallen angels. Eliza reports to Sheriff Amos Hale, but shadows yield no culprits. Accident, he suggests weakly. No, she replies, eyes steady. Judgment deferred. A week later, fences ripped, ditches choked with stones, crops trampled under boots like desecration. Guards multiply, armed, vigilant. Jacob Kane shadows her, rifle a constant cross against evil. Threats escalate, shouts on streets, epithets hurl like stones, which the thief, worse. Followers lurk at Wells Fargo, demanding secrets. Drunken mobs howl outside her J Street stronghold until Kane emerges, rifle gleaming. October brings the delegation, Harlan in 4, bursting in uninvited. Eliza at her desk, ledgers open like scriptures. An offer, Harlan sneers. $60,000 for all. Fair, given your position. Woman. Negro. No protection here. Accidents happen. Threat veiled as counsel. Eliza rises, towering in dignity. Leave. Kane steps forward, hand on rifle. They retreat, but poison lingers. November, break-in at J Street, furniture smashed, floorboards pried like seeking buried sin. On the wall, tar-scrawled, reveal or perish. Eliza stands amid wreckage, breathing the scent of violation, then repairs, locks fortified, pistol acquired, lessons in its use like prayers for defense. Deposits cease, rumors claim depletion. League ups to $70,000. Refused. January 12, 1855, tragedy strikes. Ezekiel Barrow found dead on her consummy's land, chest pierced by rifle ball, body near cottonwoods, shovel beside churned earth. Farmer Crouse discovers at dawn, rides for Hale. Scene, soft rain-soaked ground, footprints mingling, Barrow's frantic, smaller, woman's, larger, man's. Hale arrives, coroner pronouncing instant death. Barrow's obsession ended in blood. Eliza and Kane summoned. In Hale's office, lamplight harsh on faces. I was there, Eliza states calmly. With Kane, inspecting ditches. Found him digging, armed. He threatened, give me the secret or die. He fired first. Missed. Kane defended. Self-preservation. Kane confirms, voice gravel. Hale weighs, trespass, armed threat, but white man slain defending black woman, jury unpredictable. I'll arrest Kane, Hale says heavily. Trial decides self-defense. Eliza nods, unbowed. But shadows deepen, was it defense, or retribution? Barrow's death a harbinger, greed's wages, divine justice enacted through mortal hands. Her empire endures, floods gift a testament to vision amid chaos. Yet the chill lingers, in California's rush for gold, true wealth lay in seeing beyond greed, in floods that cleanse and renew. But envy, unchecked sin, exacts its toll. Fade in on the stifling heat of a Sacramento courtroom, March 15, 1855.
The building on J Street groans under the weight of history and bodies packed shoulder to shoulder, miners with dust-caked beards, merchants in freight collars, curiosity seekers fanning themselves with crumpled broadsheets. The air hangs heavy with tobacco smoke, sweat, and the sour edge of anticipation. Sunlight slants through grimy windows, striping the rough-hewn floorboards like bars of a cage. At the defense table sits Jacob Kane, rifleman turned guardian, his scarred face impassive, hands folded as if in prayer. Across the room, the Sacramento Prosperity League, led by Victor Harlan, watches with predatory stillness, their hired prosecutor Thomas Langley pacing like a wolf circling wounded prey. Langley's voice cuts sharp, "Gentlemen of the jury, this is no mystery. A man lies dead on Mary Ellen Hayes's land, shot by her hired gun. Motive? Pritchard knew too much. He had seen her unearth something she wished buried. Stern acted on her command, silencing a threat to her secret empire." The jury, 12 white men, faces weathered by sun and disappointment, leans forward. Whispers ripple, "She's hiding Spanish gold. A witch's cash. No Negro woman gets rich honestly." Then Eliza Thorne takes the stand. She wears a simple charcoal dress, high-necked and severe, her hair bound beneath a dark scarf that frames her face like a halo of shadow. Her posture is straight as a psalm, hands resting calmly in her lap. Her lawyer, Elijah Grant, a quiet abolitionist who took the case when others refused, asks softly, "Miss Thorne, tell us what happened that night." Her voice carries clear and steady, cutting through the room's murmur like a bell in fog. "Jacob and I rode out after dusk to inspect the irrigation channels. Rain had softened the earth. Near the cottonwoods, we found Ezekiel Barrow digging frantically, shovel in one hand, pistol in the other. He saw us. Raised the weapon. Said, 'Give me the secret, woman, or I'll bury you with it.' Jacob warned him to stand down. Barrow fired, missed. Jacob returned fire. One shot. Self-defense. Grant presses, 'The prosecution claims Barrow knew your secret. What do you say?' Eliza meets the jury's eyes, one by one. 'He knew nothing. He believed I had a hidden vein, a Spanish hoard, some devil's bargain.' He was wrong." Langley rises, voice oily, "Then enlighten us, Miss Thorne. Where did your fortune come from? Thousands in gold deposits, land bought for pennies, how?" The courtroom stills. Even the flies seem to pause. Eliza draws a slow breath, as if gathering the weight of 23 years. "I was enslaved for 23 years in Missouri, owned by Robert Hayes. A cruel man. Careless with his wealth. He kept a safe in his study. I watched him open it every day for a decade, memorized the clicks, the turns. When he died in 1849, I opened that safe. Inside was $12,000 in gold of profits from crops grown by chained hands, from selling human souls. I took it. Not as theft, but as recompense. 23 years of stolen labor, of blood, of dignity. $12,000 does not balance that scale, but it was a beginning." Silence falls like a stone. A pin could fall and echo. "I used it to buy my freedom from his widow," she continues. "I came to California with the remainder. I bought land others scorned, flood-prone, worthless in their eyes. I knew floods would come. I knew the rivers would carry mountain soil, rich silt, and deposit it here. I waited. I planned. I watched white men chase fleeting gold while I invested in what endures, earth made fertile by heaven's wrath. There is no secret mine. No buried treasure. Only patience. Only seeing value where pride blinded others." Langley presses, probing for cracks. "You admit to taking money without permission?" "I took what was owed me by divine justice," she replies. "The debt was theirs. The payment was mine." He grills her for an hour. She never wavers. Her story is plain, consistent, unadorned, impossible to disprove, devastating in its simplicity. The jury deliberates 3 hours. Returns, not guilty. The room erupts, cheers, curses, chairs scraping. Harlan storms out, face crimson with impotent rage. Eliza remains seated, expression unchanged. Victory, but no triumph.
She knows the war is not over.
In the aftermath, her name becomes legend.
San Francisco papers proclaim, the richest colored woman in California.
Editorials marvel at her acumen, others condemn her theft, conveniently forgetting the theft of her life. By late 1855, her holdings exceed $250,000, farms feeding the city, tenants thriving, a network of resilience in a land of ruin.
She buys a home on H Street, two-story Victorian, white picket fence, garden blooming with roses.
Inside, bookshelves heavy with scripture and abolitionist tracts, mahogany table, velvet curtains, a real bed with feather mattress. For the first time, a space that is hers. November brings a gathering, tenants, a few fair merchants.
Coffee, cake, quiet conversation. Heinrich Bauer raises a cup, you've built something eternal. Eliza smiles faintly. I've built something fragile. Pride goes before destruction. She is right. December, an anonymous letter arrives, crude script on cheap paper, you haven't won. We know what you took.
We'll take it back with interest.
She shows Cain. He frowns. The League? Likely. What now?
More guards.
More locks. No surrender. There is no secret mine. No buried treasure. Only patience.
Only seeing value where pride blinded others.
Langley presses, probing for cracks. You admit to taking money without permission?
I took what was owed me by divine justice, she replies.
The debt was theirs. The payment was mine. He grills her for an hour. She never wavers. Her story is plain, consistent, unadorned, impossible to disprove, devastating in its simplicity.
The jury deliberates 3 hours.
Returns, not guilty. The room erupts, cheers, curses, chairs scraping.
Harlan storms out, face crimson with impotent rage. Eliza remains seated, expression unchanged. Victory, but no triumph. She knows the war is not over. In the aftermath, her name becomes legend.
San Francisco papers proclaim, the richest colored woman in California.
Editorials marvel at her acumen, others condemn her theft, conveniently forgetting the theft of her life. By late 1855, her holdings exceed $250,000, farms feeding the city, tenants thriving, a network of resilience in a land of ruin.
She buys a home on H Street, two-story Victorian, white picket fence, garden blooming with roses.
Inside, bookshelves heavy with scripture and abolitionist tracts, mahogany table, velvet curtains, a real bed with feather mattress. For the first time, a space that is hers. November brings a gathering, tenants, a few fair merchants.
Coffee, cake, quiet conversation. Heinrich Bauer raises a cup, you've built something eternal. Eliza smiles faintly. I've built something fragile. Pride goes before destruction. She is right. December, an anonymous letter arrives, crude script on cheap paper, you haven't won. We know what you took.
We'll take it back with interest.
She shows Cain. He frowns. The League? Likely. What now?
More guards.
More locks. No surrender. January 1856, she announces a journey.
To the foothills.
Alone? Cain asks. Necessary. For what? To bury the past. To ensure what I left stays buried.
She departs January 20th, horse, pack, the same worn leather satchel.
Cain watches her ride into the mist, heart heavy. She's never gone alone before. Weeks pass. No return.
Business manager William Carver organizes searchers. They find her horse grazing near the Consumnes, saddle empty. Near the cottonwoods, where Barrow died, her pack lies open, blanket, provisions, canteen scattered.
No satchel. No Eliza. Searches comb canyons, abandoned camps, riverbanks. Volunteers from Sacramento join. Nothing.
By April, she is declared missing, presumed dead.
Her estate is liquidated, lands divided, house auctioned. Within a decade, her name fades from records.
History, as ever, prefers simpler narratives. Yet stories persist. Some say the League followed her, murdered her for silence. Others believe she escaped, new name, new life, far from California's gaze.
A few whisper she returned to Missouri, settling ancient accounts.
The most haunting, she never left the mountains. Found a hidden valley, lives there still, free, unseen, on her own terms. Years later, 1872, a farmer plowing near the Consumnes unearths a rusted metal box. Inside, Spanish coins, aged deeds, maps in faded ink. He takes it to Sacramento. That night, stolen from his hotel. Never recovered. Coincidence? Or final echo of Eliza's mystery? We may never know what lay in her satchel on that last ride, perhaps documents, perhaps gold, perhaps only her Bible and the weight of her choices. What we know is this: Eliza Thorne arrived with nothing but will and vision. She turned scorned land into abundance, prejudice into a mirror of its own ugliness. She reclaimed what was stolen, not just money, but agency, dignity, future. Her vanishing is her final act of defiance. No grave to desecrate. No body to judge. Only questions that linger like mist over the foothills. In the rustle of cottonwood leaves, in the patient flow of rivers that renew the earth, in the silence where greed once roared, her spirit asks, what would you do with 23 years of stolen life? What priced justice? What cost freedom? Her story is not ended. It waits for us to tell it, to remember, to question. What do you believe happened to Eliza Thorne? Did she carry Spanish gold, or only the truth of her suffering? Was she taken, or did she choose to disappear? Share your thoughts below. If these tales of forgotten courage and shadow justice move you, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and share this story. More hidden histories await.